All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and today I'm joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
Well, thank you.
On today's podcast, we're going to do a little more Q&A. I want to hop right into that. Just before I do, I want to talk about a couple of things. The Mountain Ops came out with the new Battleground Merino hoodie top, which I wore in the bear hunts this year. It's like like a military green color, and it's a great top. So check that out at Mountain Ops. Use the code GRITTY. Just get free shipping on everything you get at Mountain Ops. And the other thing I wanted to mention was if you're looking for optics, tripod, go check out Leupold Optics. They're a partner of ours too. And if you get the BX5s, any of the BX5 binos, you get the $350 tripod for free. The lightweight, which I've talked about before. That tripod, I think, is the best bang for the buck as it is. Mm-hmm. It's one of the lightest tripods with an actual fluid head. Can handle heavy spotters, everything. It's just a great tripod.
The next competitors get to cost you almost twice as much.
Or 3 times. If you can pick that up for $4, I think my setup right now is around 11 or 1,200, and it saved me like 5 ounces, 4 or 5 ounces in overall weight.
Ooh, 5 ounces.
So it's really like, it's really splitting hairs to go with like a Gitzo or something. Now, there are tripods that are lighter, like Ryan runs like a Manfrotto or something, a really cheap, but you can get away with that. But he runs a little tiny spotter on it. Mm-hmm. Or he runs his binos, but it's not he doesn't really glass a lot from it. He does a little bit, but really when you can't mount my camera to it or my bigger spotter to Ryan's, it's like it's shaking, blowing in the wind. Ryan really only uses his spotter when he needs to verify the size of an animal far, far away. Then otherwise he's just uncanny good with his 12 power or his 10 power, his handhelds, depending on the hunt. And he'll pull those out and he's just good. He can see stuff with his naked eye. So he's eagle eye. But so his tripod, I tried it. I couldn't film with it. Not at all. Like I might as well hold it by hand. The head's not fluid, so it just kind of moves a lot. So you can get cheap setups, but if you want a really high performing and lightweight setup, the Leupold tripod is money in the bank. So check that one out, and you get it for free when you buy a pair of BX5 binoculars, 10 power, 12 power, 15 power, whatever you're looking for. So check that out. That goes until August 30th, but I don't know how supplies will last or whatever, because it's a pretty sweet deal. So check those out, and their optics are already well priced. So let's get into this podcast today. The first question that came up that I wanted to cover.
Someone just left a comment that they harvested their first bear. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was cool. Just on a comment side. Yeah, Cameron Myers, he said, just harvested my first black bear over the weekend, and I'm glad I bought a goat knife. I used my Benchmade Altitude for the gnarlier cuts, but set it to the side for the most part. Since I got tired of resharpening it. LOL, those bear hides are tough.
Congrats, dude.
Congratulations. The goat knife, like we said, use the code GRITTYGOAT for one of those. I love that knife. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, right now on the market for, you can add Allen keys to it or screwdriver bits or whatever you need for the backcountry. But I like the length of the handle, the way it fits. The replaceable blade doesn't catch like some of the other, like the Taito knife has a little catch on the bottom, and when you're skinning, you can catch that and the blade will flip off. It's one of the parts about it that wasn't quite well designed, but it's also super lightweight. It's got it does feel good in your hand as well, but I think the goat knife's an edge better. So
it's pretty long. I like how long.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you can get into these little corners and stuff. Insane lightweight. But it's multifunction the way I don't have to pack in Allen keys and other bits for my scope or my bow sight or anything else. You can just get the keys you need for your hunt, and it goes right in the handle. You got to check it out. It's a cool Cool setup. He said he mentioned he used his Benchmade Altitude for those other cuts, but he got tired of sharpening it. Look, I cannot. The Benchmade Altitude is SV90 steel, I believe. S90V, SV90, whatever it is, and it's granite. I mean, like that steel does not sharpen without professional tools very easily.
You're not going to really be able to sharpen it.
You don't really sharpen it in the field very effectively. We did a podcast. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out with our buddy
Tyler Prince.
And Tyler uses, what was it called? A Wicked Edge?
Yep, Wicked Edge.
A Wicked Edge sharpener. He walks you through the process of sharpening a knife using that system. I think the Wicked Edge is, I don't know, $1,000 or something. And basically
depends on which one you get, but yeah, they're pricey.
And then you got to get some stones and stuff, but sharpening stones but it holds your knife in a vise, and then it has some arms that have the exact angle needed as you sharpen it, and you can run the stone over the edge of the knife, and then you can sharpen these blades. I bring my knife to him and have him sharpen it. He's across the street from the house here at the building. I drop it off, and he sharpens them before each season or for some hunts, depending on how much I use it. What I have found, it's ironic because one of my favorite knives that I own is the Benchmade Osborne, the carbon fiber handle folding blade knife, pocket knife. And it's a thicker blade on the top. You look at it and you're like, oh, that's not really a skinning knife because it's the blade type. I don't remember the style, but it's not really a great skinning knife, but it is the favorite knife of both Ryan and myself. It holds the edge better than the Altitude. I don't know why, because they're made out of the same steel, but I can skin multiple elk with that one knife and never have to sharpen it. So it's phenomenal. And I'm going in on bones and joints and cracking ribs and things like that with this knife. I can pry in there. I mean, it's a tough knife. The Altitude is a little bit lighter weight, but that handle doesn't, and the blade itself is a little thin. I don't use it to try to pry open a knuckle on an animal or pop a skull off a head or off a body, So, but I like having them both. I mean, the Benchmade Altitude is always around my neck, and the convenience is incredible. But the last time that Tyler sharpened the Altitude, I don't know what he did, and I talked to him about it. I'm like, dude, it is next level sharp, and it stayed that sharp for like 3 bears. And I was saying it seemed to be outperforming my favorite knife, which is the Osborne. So sharpening is critical, right? And it retained its edge really well. So I'm not sure. I think, getting it professionally sharpened or having a buddy that sharpens it can make a huge difference. And it holds those Benchmades hold their edge a long time. But having a replaceable blade knife, it's just handy. It's got the right length, handle, skinning is easier. I highly recommend that. And then since we're talking about the knives, I would say check out Graxaw game bags. Those are 6 ounces, and you can pack out deboned elk, deer, bear with a 6-ounce set of bags. They're incredibly strong, durable. I'm reusing the same set from last year. They're not very puncture resistant. That's why they're meat only game bags. They're not bone in game bags. So they're perfect for the backcountry. But you can't be like slamming them on sharp objects because they're not real puncture resistant.
Or when you hang them up in a tree, make sure they're not going to get stabbed by a broken branch.
Which hasn't been a problem for us. The tensile strength is ridiculous. So you're not going to have too much weight. You don't need to necessarily pack in 550 cord or extra rope if you can get up into a tree, because you can just use the rope right. That comes right off the bag. It's got reflectors. They're bright orange. So use the code GRITTY there. Get yourself some Graxaw game bags before the season starts. They're nice. They're just so lightweight and no bulk.
Just a heads up. So there's 2 sets. There's the ultralight and there's the XL. And the XL are about 7.5 ounces, and the ultralight, and it's just the size of the bags. They're a little bit bigger. But they are having some delays. He's been going gangbusters. It's the season. So he said...
order today.
Yeah.
The same is true with alpaca rafts. They've gotten behind. So if you were looking for a raft for September or October, you can't wait. You got to just get in on it now and use the code GRITTY there too. Shameless plug. All right. Question, Brent. Hit me. You were going through the questions earlier. You selected a few.
Oh, before, I just want to let people know that podcast episode with Tyler Sharp is episode 512.
Right on. So if you want to look at that Wicked Edge knife sharpening podcast with Tyler, what 512?
512.
512. Check that out, folks. All right. Russell Andrus says, how do you have only 50,000 subscribers? Always love the content. This review over gear of the CC Stakes was great. You answered some gear questions. Can't wait to grab some new stuff and go hunting. So,
Russell, I have the same question.
I would say this, that we've been growing rapidly. So the beginning of the season, I think we were at 30,000 subscribers and we're now at 50,000 plus. We're growing. Yeah. So we're growing pretty rapidly. You know, it's hard to grow a YouTube channel on a podcast platform because you can all just go listen to the podcast through your podcast apps and not be, stuck on a YouTube stream, you know. Now with the new apps and the iPhone, you can stream videos on iTunes and turn your phone off and just listen to it. But prior to that, you had to have your phone open, you had to have the video playing in the app open. But now you can stream your audio off of iTunes, off of YouTube rather.
YouTube, whatever their Prime membership is, where you pay $5 a month, where you don't have to get commercials, you can listen to stuff while the phone's off.
Well, I can listen to stuff while the phone's off right now without paying for that.
I know, which is why it's just silly that YouTube offers that in the first place, because you can just go ahead and do it just about anywhere else.
Well, I think since we've come out with consistent film, we go through our hunts and then we try to produce our films right away. We've just been growing rapidly.
And we're getting our hands on some really cool footage. I'm real excited.
Yeah, we have more film content coming. Honestly, we've been going over the hunts. And I'll just tell you guys that are fans of the video content, the hunting content, we'll have lots of footage of Ryan elk hunting, a couple of films. There'll be some films of my elk hunts. They're all archery. I think we'll be able to keep you guys busy for like 6 to 8 Sundays on just straight up awesome over-the-counter public land.
With some real killers. Not just lampers, but intern Brad.
Yeah, here's the deal. We got intern Brad, who is an elk-killing machine. We got Ryan Lampers, who's an elk-killing machine. And we got a few others with Ryan that are killing machines. So we should get some footage of some great encounters.
We got some youth hunts that are going to be happening, too.
Yeah. And then we have a lot of mule deer hunts, tons of mule deer hunts, 6 of them. And those are backcountry, awesome hunts. So we're going to have we think we can keep your all Sundays busy for 6 straight months every Sunday. I don't know.
Maybe. The numbers are there. But when you say it out loud, I cry a little.
Yeah. The deal is we plan to produce footage from... We plan to release. So we've learned over the years that releasing content in September and October and even November isn't very effective because y'all are out hunting.
Our audience literally just mass exodus and walks out. Into the
for
wood.
3 months, gone.
Yep.
Same is true for me, though. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be out collecting footage and going on hunts. So we're going to keep the podcast content streaming throughout the entire hunting season, but we're not going to put a lot of film out until Thanksgiving. Right around the Thanksgiving period, we're going to start releasing footage, and then we plan to release footage indefinitely until next year's spring bear.
The goal is to try to roll into spring bear and then come back with spring bear footage. So there might only be a week or 2 delay before we have new footage coming out again.
Yeah. So that's the plan. We'll see how it works.
Wish us luck.
It's just Brent and I, and we've gotten better and better at editing film, and we're faster and faster. And then the way I film in the woods makes it easier to edit when I get in the office.
That's been the biggest thing definitely has been the way you film, because it practically comes back almost prepackaged.
It definitely is like just a kind of a formula of puzzle pieces I like to put in, and I have.
And if you know the formula,
way.
you cut out a third amount of the time because there's no guesswork.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty easy. We kind of have a block system and kind of how we like to tell the story, and every hunt's different. So you don't know what you're going to get and how you're going to tell it.
There's no second takes. You get what you get from a hunt.
Yeah.
I think that's what's cool about hunting films, and also the hardest part about them.
Well, I feel like sometimes it's a little contrived for someone to go out with a preconceived plan for what the story is.
Mm-hmm. Like Red Lightning. You guys got charged by those 2 bears. Well,
Yep.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the film, Brian gets charged by 2 bears back to
charged,
back.
when you say charged, they didn't charge us. They just
They came in running.
they came in running to us, but they didn't, and then they stopped. But what I'm getting at is this. When you go out in the woods with a preconceived idea of what your story is on a hunt, I understand that to a degree, but you don't really know what the story is to me. When as a hunter, I just want to know what the hunt was. I don't want to know that your grandma died last year and that I'm not against it. It's just that you better do a good job of tying in these stories that are external to the actual hunt. Because in a lot of ways, I feel like too often we try to overproduce an experience. Mm-hmm. And hunting is what it is. It's great. It's just what it is. I feel like too often hunting programs try to embellish or make something into something that it's not, or is over the top. It's like, no, just tell me how your hunt went, and tell it to me in as clean and concise and easy to digest manner as you can. And it is what it is. I don't make up cool shots. You either get them or you don't. And then you just say, hey, folks, this is what we did, and this is how it happened. That's it. There's no like...
You know, our buddy Luke Duesenberry, I believe, was the one telling me he one of his professors did a stint where he went out and just shot wildlife.
And Luke, for those that don't know, he was a cameraman at Mountain Ops. We've worked a lot with Luke. He's a stud.
Yeah, and he was so his professor went out, did the stint, photoshopped a bunch of cool animals, came back, and they're phenomenal. And there's this one where there's a pheasant, and it's flying out of the bush, and there's snow flapping off its wings in the sunset, and it's just a perfect picture. And they're like, how did you get that? And the teacher's like, well, it's really hard. You have to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. You have to hike up to the top of this hill, and then you have to sit, and you have to wait till the sun hits its perfect zenith. And then you have to give the man with the pheasant the signal to let it out of the cage. And it's like, that just doesn't happen in our line of business.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Too true. All right. Let's talk just real quick. John writes, Brian, if you use your walking sticks properly, you will be surprised how much better you will feel. I held them in the same way, and then I saw some guy on YouTube explain why those straps are there. They take all the pressure off your hands, and if you hold them at 70-degree angle going uphill, they'll actually push you up the hill. I think when it comes to, I don't deny that. Mm-hmm. I think that but I think everybody's anatomy is a little different. Everybody's upper body strength varies from guy to guy. Maybe your grip, maybe the size of your hand. There are just a lot of variables when you're using trekking poles. You had some statistics, Brent, that you dug up on trekking poles the other day. Mm-hmm. Run them by me. I think it's useful information because, you know, we talked about how Ryan and I kind of use our trekking poles as canes. Ryan absolutely uses them like a cane, where he puts his hand right on the top, on the palm, and they're short too. He loves it that way. Works for him. And he covers insane miles.
Well, that's so there's this is outdoorgearlab.com, and they've got like 10 reasons for using trekking poles. And the first thing they list actually is that it helps to increase your speed. You get into a rhythm, you get into a mode, and not only that, but you're just more sure-footed.
Yeah.
But probably the biggest one is the reduction on the impact on your legs, your knees, your ankle, your feet, all those things. There's a study by the Journal of Sports Medicine that showed that trekking poles can reduce compressive force on your knees by as much as 25%.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. Not at all. Especially if you're wearing a 50 to 100 pound backpack. I mean, there's no doubt that it takes. It conserves energy. It's crazy how much balance and muscle you need to use, not have to use when you got 2 poles in your hands and you go from a 2-legged animal to a 4-legged animal.
That's the one downside that they do share, is that you are now using your arms, that you can technically exert more energy, but you save stress on your body. Mm-hmm. So it's a trade well worth in my mind.
Right.
You can recover.
I don't like straps. Now, I've used them I've tested my hands in there, using them properly, like John was describing, and I still just don't like it. And dudes love their straps. And again, if you put your wrist in there just right and you hold the grip properly, it's sort of, you don't have to grip the pole very tightly. You can have a pretty loose grip because you're using the leverage of the strap and so on to move you along. And every now and then, I mean, I'll use the straps. But to be frank, a lot of times I'm going straight up or straight down on some gnarly terrain. Mm-hmm. I don't want my wrist in a strap connected to a pole. And I've seen this where a guy is going down a hill and his pole is jabbed in the dirt, and then he slips and he can't get his wrist out. And I've experienced it too. And it's like, and it's yanking your shoulder out of socket or twisting your arm up because you've got 100 pounds on your back plus your body weight and everything else going one direction, and your pole is in the ground holding your arm in another direction.
Yeah, you can't fall.
What's going to give? Your arm, or something in your arm or your elbow. I don't like that. And so in those sketchy situations, I don't put my wrist in. That's a good way to get injured. If I slip or whatever, I got to drop the pole. I want to let go of the pole. I've had 2 poles in the ground like this. If you're listening, 2 poles in the ground, one on either side as I'm going down the hill, and then I've slipped and it's like you're crucified on a hill and you can't get your arms out. So when I slip like that, I can let go of the pole, use my hands quickly. Same with crossing some rivers. I like that. So for me, I do admit I'm using my straps more than I have in the past, but it's all conditional and it depends on what I'm doing. Trekking poles, though, I think are a must-have. If you don't have a pair, consider some sissy sticks. Use the code GRITTY there. And for those that don't know, they are like a carbon fiber upper with an aluminum lower. Some of the models that we've got right now, they have a tiny little basket, which I love. Ryan and I call those bigger ones grass catchers because as you're walking, you're like fighting to pull your pole through. The smaller those cups are, the more durable they are, the longer they last. You absolutely need a cup one way or another, because if you don't have a cup of some kind, that pole just keeps, especially in soft ground, it just keeps going. And then every time you take a step and you leverage your pole, it sinks too deep. And then you got to yank it out of the ground as you move to the next step. And it's no good. It's no good. So you want to have that cup on there. The other thing is the carbide tips. Most of the time, Ryan and I, when we're out there hiking, we're using the tips, not the rubber feet that go over the tips. And the reason for that is just you have so much more purchase and grip. Now, the downside to those tips is they can be a little bit noisy as they chink on rocks or boulders or something. If you're going up, down, and there's a little bit of rocky terrain, they make a little noise, or they can be, or you have to be careful. So we have those little rubber feet that go on the bottom of those sissy sticks. And one of our complaints is you run those bottoms, any other pole design, you're walking along, you stick it in the ground and it goes in some mud or a river crossing, and then you pull the pole upward and the rubber feet just slip right off. And now they're gone. You're going down real quiet with rubber feet on your poles and you're like, yeah, I'm sneaking in a few hundred yards from my animal. And then it's like you look down and you're starting to make noise because both the feet got sucked in the mud or disappeared somewhere, and good luck finding them. So we went back to sissy sticks and we're like, look, we want something where those feet don't come off, or, there's got to be a better design. So they upgraded that thing so that you can screw those feet on. So they have threads in the rubber feet that go on the carbide tips. So you'll see us, Ryan and I, on some of those final approaches on our hunts, we grab those rubber tips right out of our backpack, screw them on, and then we can go. And since we've added the threads to the pole design, we haven't lost any rubber feet. If you run those rubber feet 24/7, you're going to punch through them because they're just rubber. So that's another reason we take them off, so they last. You can always get new rubber feet, but they'll last a really long time if you just use them when you need to be quiet. Really,
I lost my rubber feet in about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
ended up going downhill and just popped right out.
Yeah, that's why the screw in is money. Game changer. Game changer. So check out those poles at Sissy Sticks. Use the code GRITTY there. And there's not another pole on the market, I think, like it, that especially in that price point. The other carbon fiber aluminum combo poles, they're over $200. All right, next question. This guy said, I'm struggling with keeping my phone and watch charged while in the backcountry. What do you take with you as a power station that will last you for 10-ish days? We bring, I said this on an earlier podcast, Dark Energy Poseidon.
They have a new one.
They have a new one, the Pro. And we bring one or two of those. I only bring one. I need upgrade your phone to something, an iPhone that's to something that's the newest iPhone. Battery lasts way longer, is impervious to the cold. You're in reach. Make sure it's the small mini. Conserve it. Turn it on and off as needed. I only use the phone when I need on X. Turn it off, or I turn on to airplane mode. If you run your phone on airplane mode, 90% of the time, my battery will last like 3 days in the phone. The GPS still works while in airplane mode. So you just have to download your maps before you hit the mountains for OnX. And if you want to know more about that, if you're new to e-scouting, even on X, Google Earth, you just got to go check out Mark Livesey's e-scouting class. That Treeline Pursuits e-scouting course is money. And if you haven't looked into that, you need to. We need to get him on the podcast again and talk into more depth about e-scouting and whatnot, but can't say enough about it. Use the code GRITTY there and you save, and it's going to change your hunting life forever. Again, on the battery though, you download your maps for OnX before you get there, your maps from Gaia, your information from Google Earth, whatever. You have your routes pre-planned, everything's pre-done with your e-scouting. Take the course. You'll figure that out if you don't know already. Even if you do, you're going to learn stuff in this course. And then I use Pale Blue, little rechargeable batteries. Get those. I bring a set of AA's and AAA's for my headlamp and for my water purifier. And that's kind of my power setup, really. That's it. And that'll last me 10, 12 days. I'm careful. Once I realize, I got 3 days left and running out of juice, I'll be like, all right, well, I'm going to have to not use my headlamp much, or I'm going to need to turn my phone off for a day or two. We're going to have to really use Ryan's phone and then go back to my phone. But I bring one Poseidon energy charger and a set of AAA, AA Pale Blue batteries that are rechargeable. And when I hit the mountains, I go with a fresh set of lithium ion batteries because they're so lightweight and they last a long time. Those are throwaways. And then I move on to my Pale Blue rechargeables as needed. Okay, Brent, next question. One of the comments a guy made said, I like the way your wife adapted the Bino case. I now have a new sewing job the wife can do for me. So I love my marsupial gear Bino harness. I said that in an earlier podcast on gear we did. But I didn't like how it was open. Apparently they have a new one, Brent. I haven't seen it, but a bunch of guys got it recently in the mail. They chimed in, said it's awesome. That was my only complaint. So I had the wife build some, little walls in there and sew them in. She's a crafty gal, so that it kept the wind, water, rain, and stuff out of it.
I looked it up, and it looks a little maybe heavier or bulkier than kind of what your setup is. It looks just looks a little heavier.
So my wife's version is the best.
Sure.
Yeah, check that out. I love that. If you want to learn more about my opinions on those harnesses, go back to that other gear review we did a week ago, maybe.
There's a question about taking your food out into the mountains with plastic. Did you ever see that one? Courtney Rasbach.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, because we were talking about how we like to drink out of stainless steel. Try to avoid plastic. That doesn't mean we don't drink out of plastic. I mean, sometimes it happens, but yeah, we're especially hot liquid. I don't want to dump hot liquid in a plastic container, and that's where it shines. Ryan's a big coffee drinker. I like some hot cocoa or just bone broth. Both consume a lot of bone broth. It's nice to dump your hot liquid into your water bottle. And we use the GSI microlight and just roll with that. And it'll stay hot for hours. The vice versa is true. It'll stay ice cold. You get some ice cold river water, creek water. You throw in your Mountain Ops Ignite Citrus Bliss, which is my favorite, and a liquid IV. And it is just the heavenly refreshment. And it's so awesome when it's hot outside and it's ice cold. You're paying a penalty. I think it's 6 ounces or 5 ounces heavier than an Nalgene, but they're the same shape.
Same dimensions and everything.
And where we're counting ounces like crazy, it is a penalty, because I've ditched other things. I've gone from a VX6 rifle scope to a VX3 to shave, a Leupold to shave 6 ounces. I could shave another 6 if I didn't go with the metal water bottle, insulated. But it's such a pleasure to have. And I think people take for granted hot and cold liquids. I think that the bottle I also use as a roller for sore calves and hips and stuff, like a foam roller. I hit those things at night and before I get to sleep sometimes, work out some tight knots. I find that it's versatile that way.
If you need to brain something with you, it's heavy. You can crack someone's skull with that thing.
It's not heavy. I mean,
when it's full of water, it is.
Oh, yeah. But it's pretty dang light. But again, you're drinking out of stainless steel, which is a lot healthier for you than what chemicals you get off of plastic.
My wife works at Sportsman's, and I went there trying to buy one. And at her store, they've only had one bottle in the last year. And I've been telling her, you need to make them get a new one. Then you get a new one, because the only one they had in stock was pink. So I have a pink microlight. And I was like, babe, I need a different color.
Yeah.
It's a darkish pink. You might be able to pass it off with something else.
I like the Hunter Green. Ryan has the stainless steel. I'm like, dude, that's awful shiny. I mean, what if those, critters see the reflection? He doesn't seem too worried about it.
So this question, though, I believe, Brian, he's asking about food, not necessarily water.
So it started with that, and I think it's a gal. I'm not sure.
Courtney Rasbach? Yeah, it's a gal.
It could be a girl. It could be a guy, I guess, Courtney. But the point is, who am I to judge? The point is that, what do you put your food in? The one thing is, like, I use a lot. We both use some Ziplocs. Ryan uses some Mylar bags. I think Mylar, especially heat-wise, it doesn't release the same kind of toxins that like a cheap Ziploc bag does. But in all reality, we don't heat up those bags. They just store our food. So it's not as detrimental.
Mylar is made from metallized polyester.
Yeah.
Polyester is amazing.
So I don't really know the ins and outs of it. I know that Mylar is what's used for like backpacking meals and things like that. But to answer her question, when we heat up a meal, you can dump the hot water into your, like Heather's Choice salmon chowder bag, right? And then you can seal it and you let it heat up. And that basically, I believe, is a Mylar bag. That's standard for the food industry to use. So it doesn't release toxins from the heat and stuff the way that a plastic bag does. Now, I could be talking out my ass. I actually don't really know. I just know that's the norm. That's what Ryan does. If you go to a Stealthy Hunter page, they have Mylar bags you could buy in bulk that you can put your foods in.
Yeah, I'm online right now, and I'm trying to find out whether or not Mylar has the same kind of problems that plastic does, and it does not look like it does.
Right. So there's an option, but that's not, other than Heather's Choice for me, which I buy and I pour right in there on occasion. A lot of times I don't cook my Heather's Choice in the bag.
Yeah.
I dump the contents into my mini Mo jet boil, and I add a little water and I just simmer that and stir it. And so I'm not heating it in the bag. I'm heating it in the pot.
And I don't think plastic was going to hurt you nearly as much if it's not being heated up.
Right. That's what I'm saying is it's the heating of the plastic that can release a lot of the chemicals and stuff. If it's room temperature or colder, a lot of times you're not getting the toxins from that. So my wife will use like a food saver. Ryan has some new vacuum sealing bags from a new product he's going to review here soon. That's pretty sweet. It makes my food saver look like a third world toy or product. But you vacuum seal. She's making me quinoa and curry chicken right now. So she's cooked up tons of chicken, diced it real small, and lots of quinoa with a curry kind of base, and then like a mustard curry thing. Anyway, she creates it, and then she makes a serving and, like a bowl like I would eat for dinner. And then she dumps that into a vacuum sealable bag. With the food saver, she vacuum seals it. Well, first she dehydrates it.
Yeah.
And then she vacuum seals it. And when I go to eat it, I just cut open a little package, dump it into the Mini-Mo pot with the simmering water that I need, a cup of water, whatever it is I need to hydrate it. And I can always add a little, make it thicker or thinner. I like having that control so I don't have to commit. Like in a Mylar bag, you're just like, I think that's about right. And then you close it and then you wait 20 minutes and it rehydrates and you realize, man, I added too much water. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, dang, there's not enough water in here and there's a whole bunch of dry parts. Mm-hmm. When you jump it in your Mini-Mo, you solve that problem. You start conservative. You're like 3/4 cup water. You just dump it in there from your GSI Microlite. You're stirring it around with your Sea to Summit spoon, long handle. The Mini-Mo is shallow, so the pot is shallow, so you're not like sticking your hand inside a giant tall cup like you do with like the Jetboil Flash and stuff like that. Get rid of those. Use that Mini-Mo and you stir it, and you can just stir that food up and it just slowly hydrates, and then you can go, I want a little more water, and you can just add a little bit, and it's the right texture. It hydrates better, especially homemade meals hydrate better in the pot. And then when it's done, I eat right out of the pot. So I'm not dealing with all this plastic that you're talking about. So I hope that answers Courtney's question. Yes, no?
Mm-hmm. This is a good question from Wild and Outdoors. How do you keep your cameras from freezing up in that temperature? And this is a comment left on that last year's mule deer hunt where you guys are in the thick snow. Yeah.
Well, it used to be a problem. I switched to the Sony A7 III with the new battery platform. It's impervious to the cold. It doesn't seem to be affected even in -5, 10 degree weather like we experienced. I didn't have to baby the batteries. They just can hold up against the cold. My old one, it would have killed all 20 batteries I packed with me would have died overnight.
Yeah, that was great.
So upgrading to a new camera that has the A7 III platform and battery on that Sony, that's what I've done. The other thing is you can take your batteries and sleep with them, which is what I've had to do when I've had to baby batteries in the past. I still do that because I just worry. Cold does affect batteries to an extent. So I tend to I have a little pouch of 3 or 4 batteries for my camera. Those always kind of are on my person until they go dead. And I throw them in my sleeping bag and kind of take care of those to keep them as room temperature or warm as possible. But they can handle the cold. I've tested them, and they're robust against the cold. The camera itself, I don't know. The Sony hasn't froze on me. It can get rain, sleet, take a beating.
But you've had cameras in the past that were kind of not as good.
Yeah, that struggled. Yeah.
And did you do anything with those cameras differently?
They were just the problem. I had to warm them up at times, One thing that both James and I do, because he runs a Canon.
Yeah, he's a Canon guy.
When I'm in my teepee in my tent with the stove going, you're outside in -10 degree, you're running your camera out there. When I bring it in, you don't want the heat, that sudden change from that kind of cold to like 40 or 50 degrees in the tent. Your camera will just get fogged up, and you'll have all this condensation building up inside, moisture, all these problems. So when I bring it into the tent, I keep it in my backpack or I keep it low in the corner of the tent down low where the heat rises. So I try to keep it in a cold corner right against the wall of the tent where the camera doesn't get affected by the heat. So I don't get moisture inside of it from condensation. It's that change from hot to cold. But if I'm just outside and I'm just doing the stuff in the cold, it's not a problem. Fogging up can be a problem at times. And I just pull the lens off, let air get in, screw it back on, lens off, air back in. And I use a little blower. Like I bring a little blower and I'm like, like a little like baffle thing that camera guys use. And I just blow air into it. Once it's the right temperature and it's kind of matching the outside, it's not a big problem. But when it's that cold, it's tough to film. You just deal with it. You just figure it out.
The next question, Mark Rosalind. Great question, or great series. He's leaving a comment on episode 4 of our last bear hunt series.
Yeah.
Question. Why, when you're in bear country, do I see food in the tent, followed by a nice diagram of the kitchen 200 feet away from the tent? He's talking about the Bermuda Triangle. We didn't really come up with that. That's something that's just existed for a long time. But he's wanting to know why the kitchen is way the heck out in no man's land.
We try not to eat smelly foods and things or cook right at the tent because it leaves odor and food smells all around the tent. So we'll try to go like downwind of the tent and, eat, kind of warm up, cook our food, eat it over there if we're going to do that. If we're at the tent though, and we crack open a Heather's Choice packaroon, that's not like cooking a steamy salmon chowder meal. And so we'll eat a little bit there. And then what we do, that's often what we do. If we do eat at the tent in that kind of country is we try to stick with foods that are pretty minimal. Now we don't sleep with those foods in the tent, but we do snack a little bit and eat foods that we're not breaking open like some aromatic cheeses and meats and stuff. And
the idea is to consolidate your food where you sleep and then where you actually hang up your food. So it creates a triangle. 100, 200 feet away.
So the wind directions are really important in that, so that if they do smell your kitchen or they do pick up the smell of your food hanging in a tree, that when they come into that area, that they don't walk through your camp to get there, right? If they're on the other side of your camp and the wind's blowing at their back, they're not going to smell you. Now, if they're downwind of your tent and your kitchen, you want them to run into your kitchen and the food long before they run into your tent.
Yeah, you don't want them bumping you in the middle of the night.
Right. And so, once they find the food, they just kind of stay focused on the food. They don't go walking 200 yards past it over to your tent and mess with you. They're obsessed with the thing they found, So the whole idea though is, pay attention to the wind, put your food, both the food that you have remaining and your cooking, keep it away from the tent as much as possible. And like I said, we do a good job with that. Some of what you've seen is we know we're packing up that morning. We're mobile. We're not just staying there. So you'll see us cook up a breakfast in the tent that morning. Well, we know that we're going to pack up and leave in 40 minutes. We're not going to leave our tent there over and over again. And so you'll see us eat in our tent, but we're also taking it down and moving. So we don't worry about that, but we're always paying attention. We are to bears and our food and so forth.
There's another question from Lonnie Gehring. Have you ever thought about a video breaking down the whole process once you guys have a bear on the ground from the field to eating? I'd love to see you guys process and bone the meat out in your favorite ways of cooking and preserving it. I've never canned anything in my life, but you guys talk highly of it. Part of the reason we don't show any of the processing of the bear, or we show very, very little, is mostly because of YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube throttles our content when we show graphic or it's stupid.
You can watch butchering of cows and pigs. They're all over on YouTube. But if you have a bear or an elk,
wild animal, game animal, if you do it inside a kitchen in a sterile, like Meat Eater will throw YouTube videos up.
You have to make it look like you didn't commit murder in the woods is what they want to make it look like.
Right. It has to look like a cut from the store almost.
If you pull that bear quarter out of some cellophane, they'd be stoked.
Right. So there are videos on it a little bit. We've still covered quite a bit of butchering at times, but start to finish, we haven't done it.
There's just a lot of people out there who've already done it. The meat eater has probably killed it.
We definitely take for granted that I have to force myself to go, this might be new information for someone, because so much of our audience, I think, is experienced, but you also have the rest of the audience that is really brand new. And so you don't want to create content that completely...
Well, even if you've been a killer your whole life, you might not have shot a bear.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different animal.
It is different, especially back straps on bear. They're irritating. And so are the front...
really?
Or the back knuckles, the back feet.
Okay, the next time...
The back feet suck. They suck. Ryan's really good at it. I hate removing the back feet.
We did do an episode of one of our favorite ways to prepare, and that's canning. And that's episode. We did a whole podcast on it.
It's not hard. It's not rocket science.
No.
You just try to trim as much fat as you can off of the bear meat, but you don't have to be too crazy with it if the bear meat's really fresh. And once it cooks, the sinew and stuff it's like it just dissolves almost. So you don't have to be too crazy with it, but we do try to remove quite a bit of fat and stuff, sinew from the meat. You cut it into cubes that are 1 by 1 inch cubes or something, 1.5 by 1 inch, something like that. And you just watch the video.
Yeah, that's episode 479, but there's a ton of videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
But go watch ours.
Somebody said Tyvek is great, but too noisy. Every move you make is so loud. So that's talking about the ground cover in the tent. I agree. Although if you wash it and dry it and beat the hell out of it, you can make it much quieter. But I still love my
$600.
My Cuban fiber.
They're cheaper.
tarp.
They're like $350 to $400 now.
Are they?
You can get one about half that size for
Look,
like $200.
Don't think of it as a ground cloth. Think of it as a backup shelter. Think of it as
backup tarp.
A tarp, just as it's so functional.
It's a sunshade.
Sunshade. It keeps you we hunted in some wide open, blazing hot country years ago. Me, Ben, and Anthony, we killed a bull.
That one horn bull that Ben shot?
Yeah, in the middle of 95-degree heat, no shade anywhere. And now you're cutting open an animal and it's just getting beat by the sun.
And there's no shade as far as you can see.
And we just staked the two corners down, pulled the tarp up, put trekking poles in the ground on the top end.
Made a lean-to.
And staked it down. Threw all in a nice breezy little cut. Blazing sun, threw all the meat under there, and it was like it was night and day temperature difference. Flies, everything is night and day. Got each cut, threw it in a game bag, put it underneath there, and it was such a relief. So don't underestimate it as a quality shade, especially when it's flat, staked flat like that, because all the wind can go back and forth, and you're just keeping the sun off like an umbrella. And then same is true when it's pouring rain. I'll pull that thing out. We'll all wrap ourselves around it. Our gear and our backpacks there. You wait for that rain squall to pass. You get up against a rock or something, let it pass, and then you just shake that thing off. And Dyneema doesn't collect water. It just, you shake it and the water just comes off generally, and you can just like roll it up and you're good to go again. And it's compact and weighs nothing. And then it acts as a ground cloth as well. And mine's so big, I could roll it out across the entire floor and two guys could use it as a ground cloth. I don't know, man. I'm still testing it, but so far, that Cuban fiber, I haven't popped an air pad yet since I've been using that, which plagued me last year.
Knock on wood.
Last year, I was using the Seek Outside ground cloth that they sell, the little brown one. I just found like little things.
Matte face?
No. That one's much thicker. That one's kind of a rubber pad. No, this, it was, it's just like a still nylon kind of material.
Okay.
What I found was it is waterproof, but it's not puncture proof. And so things would just poke through that and then poke my pad. So what I found is, things don't poke through my Cuban fiber tarp, my Z-Pax tarp, not at all. And so I love it. So folks, consider thinking of it as a backup shelter and a ground cloth. I like anytime you're in the backcountry and you're going in there, and you have pieces of gear that can serve more than one purpose, that's powerful. It's sort of like we were talking with the bipods, the Javelin bipods with the new Tricer legs. If you have those Tricer legs on there and you have your trekking poles can be used to set up your tent, right? Mm-hmm. For some shelters, so you don't have to pack in poles for that. You can use those trekking poles as legs for your tripod, or your bipod rather, for your rifle. That way you're packing in way less weight because your poles are serving these multiple uses. And
you're going to get a really lightweight bipod up front anyways.
Right. You can have just a short one. You mean that's just for shooting prone. You already have that. But yeah, but my point is, you start bringing on devices or gear bits that can be used for more than one thing, that are multifunctional. It's pretty powerful in the backcountry, and then it's redundant. Having a Cuban fiber tarp in addition to my Cimarron teepee. I mean, if a bear comes along and actually eats my teepee, destroys it, I still have my little 6-ounce tarp. Not little, it's 10 by 12 or something. That's 10 by 8, or it's a big tarp. I still have that, and I can use that as shelter if something were to go wrong, or maybe the wind takes my teepee while we're gone or something. It's just nice to have that as backup, and it serves as a ground cloth primarily, but then it can also be that critical shelter if things went south. Something to think about.
There's another question from Steve from Oregon. He's wondering if you guys have any issues with leaving your vehicles unoccupied for 10 to 14 days at a time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a story of getting their stuff stolen or their truck broken into. A lot of times we're not on trailheads. Ryan and I will go in on a trail on a totally random spot on a highway, or, we choose to enter off trail. And if you use marked e-scouting course, you can find some things like that. So your truck isn't parked like in a high traffic sort of trailhead area where people know you're parking there for 2 weeks or a week and you're going to be gone. And the other thing too is I've noticed, like, a newer truck with an alarm system on it, I've seen people break into old cars because they know it's not going to start screaming. They break into a truck that's newer. You've got all the alarms going off. I have noticed that where my truck doesn't get hit, and it's a nicer truck than some of the other stuff in the parking lot, or in the trailhead. Yeah, Ryan's truck is a target waiting to be nailed. Although when they look at that, they're probably like, "There's nothing of value in there."
Nothing. This truck has clearly been parked here for years.
The truck. So one of the things I've been worried about is the stuff in my canopy. Okay. Your truck bed is vulnerable because it's really easy to break into a canopy. Most of the canopies out there, you can just like pry them open. If you just had a crowbar, you can just pop that rear hatch open. Some of them are glass now. They're a little harder to do without breaking. But in general, it's not that hard to break into a canopy. And then once you're inside, you can steal everything out of the truck bed. So a lot of times we move everything from the truck bed that's of value into the cab of the truck and lock it. Tinted windows help. I try to leave so it looks like there's nothing of valuable just sitting there saying, "Steal me, steal me, steal me." I don't leave something nice. Like
don't tempt people.
Yeah, I don't tempt people. But here's what I've been doing. This is what I'm planning on this year. I had Bo Martonic, whatever.
I think it's Martonic.
I think it is too. Bo's a good friend. I just don't use his last name.
Yeah.
Bo has the East Meets West podcast. He was on my show a while back, and
we need to have him back on. He went on a rattlesnake hunt, and I need to hear about this.
We need to get him on. But the back of the truck has a decked system in it, which is this new truck bed storage system that he had. I watched it last year. I was like, dude, that is so functional and amazing. Anyway, it goes into the back of your truck bed, and it has 2 giant cargo containers that slide out, which allow you to access everything like with just drawers.
It takes up the whole length of the truck, but it's still flat, so you can still use your truck bed.
If you have a canopy, especially, if you have a canopy in there, there's a lot of room above the decked system to throw your coolers, whether you have a canopy or not. But with the canopy, it's like I can throw my Yeti coolers in there, my Reinhardt targets, my propane tanks, my generator,
small Traeger,
gas tank, small Traeger, tailgater, stuff like that. Everything will go in there.
If I had a truck and a deck system, I could literally put everything I own inside of that truck.
Absolutely.
I could live out of it.
And what's great about it is it's easy to access everything you need. It's right there. So you pop down the tailgate and the drawers slide out, and there's little cubby holes, little toolkit boxes that have your gear. And I'll do a podcast on that.
Yeah, it's got its whole organization.
I'll show you it's, and for those that are interested, I'll just do a podcast on the decked setup. But what I was driving at, if someone breaks into my truck bed now, like pops open my canopy and goes in somehow, they can't get into the decked storage container that has everything in my truck bed. And so, and then it's got its own locks, its own lock system. So again, even if they were to break the front window and then use the automatic lock to unlock the tailgate, because you can't even get to the drawers unless the tailgate comes down, and the tailgate's locked because of the truck. So somebody can break open the canopy and not make the alarm go off, because the canopy has nothing to do with the security on the truck, but they can't open the tailgate. And so they can't get into the deck system. But let's say they broke the window in the front of the cab, broke it open, and then they unlocked it and they dropped my tailgate. Then there's 2 locks on the deck system that you have to break into as well to get stuff out.
If you see these things, you're not breaking into those things. Maybe if you had a crowbar in a couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some dude out there who knows how to use a sledgehammer. But again, you're going to send off some alarms and make some noise. That's kind of unavoidable. So the whole time you'd be breaking in, it would be notifying the entire
countryside.
Yeah, anyone could roll up at any time. You're just trying to deter people. If they really want to get in there and steal stuff,
you're not stopping.
You're not going to stop them. But to answer your question, man, I have been blessed. I have not been robbed. We leave gear in there all the time and come back, and it's just fine. I think people who hit the mountains and go on trailheads in general, hunters, backpackers, cyclers, they're go-getters. They respect other people, the hard work it takes to earn the things you own. They wouldn't want someone to steal their stuff at the trailhead. I think you have an inordinate amount of law-abiding citizens that go in the backcountry. And so generally I don't have a problem getting.
When we were in Oregon, I went up with a friend to go out to the Bagby Hot Springs. Have you been up there?
Yeah, a bunch of naked old people go
They
in there.
did not give me the heads up before what I was in store for. That's a whole nother story.
It's just a weird. There's a few needles there now.
Yeah, man, it was a scary experience. But I had dropped my keys. It's like about 1.5 mile, 2 mile hike in there, and I dropped them maybe like 20 feet into the whole ordeal. Didn't realize it till I was already there at the hot springs. And I started walking back, and about 15 minutes later, I bump into this older couple. They asked me, have you lost anything? And I said, I lost my keys to my car. And they're like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, matters.
And they were like 20 feet away from the car. Like they could have opened my car up, gone through it.
I got to tell you, folks, you've got to look into this decked system. They're going to give us a code. Not a code, actually. They're going to give us a link. An affiliate link.
Yeah, you have to click that link in the show notes or in the description.
There's a discount, and then it helps us as well. But again, I put it in. I only recommend stuff that we love. We only bring it on board if we really dig it. And it is one of the best pieces of new gear, if you want to call it that.
Would you say it's changing the game?
It's a game changer. It's ridiculous, folks. I cannot tell you enough how much it has. I went out with the family. I have a enclosed cargo trailer, which has those bunk bed cots in it. And we hunted out of that last year. A bunch of us guys up at Randy Newberg's, our Arizona Coos Javelina hunt. We got all the bunk beds in there, little cooking area. It's enclosed. Anyway, it's a cool little setup. And then in the truck, I've got the decked system. I got the kids' bows, their arrows, all my bow stuff organized in little boxes. I've got books, toolkits, like everything in that decked system. My kids, all their bags and backpacks and all the stuff that they were needing for the trip. Boom, everything's back there. Anything that I wanted to get my hands on. I had all my podcast gear, all my video gear. I just popped down the tailgate, slid it out, and everything was right there to grab at a moment's notice. Super effective. So I would say it's one of the coolest pieces of gear out there right now. Been testing it. It was a pain in the ass to put together. It's like one of those IKEA pieces of furniture that shows up with 1 billion little, like nothing was pre-assembled. Like nothing. Like every screw was like, dang it. Like, couldn't we have at least 2/3 of it put together? Because
I will gladly pay for installs like that.
It took a couple hours. It wasn't bad. I have an 8-foot bed, not a 6-foot bed. And technically, the box doesn't extend the full 8 feet. It goes 6. So the back has a couple of extra feet, which I actually really love because I'm able to throw gear back there that doesn't roll around or rattle
Never
around.
gonna be able to move.
I got a couple of Reinhardt targets in there. I've got a 5-gallon water jug. I've got a 5-gallon gas tank and a generator, Honda generator. I throw all that back there. Doesn't move. It's nice and tight. It's right there for the getting if I need it. But it just kind of sits back there. And then I threw 2 canvas cutters on the decked bed, and they're exactly 6 feet basically. Rolled those out side by side. The wife and I slept back there. The missus and I had a wonderful time. The truck was so comfy, and we got it rocking here and there, and it was a great little setup. The whole setup, I love it. The canvas cutters, the deck, to it's cool. I'll show you guys that in another video. Before we end this podcast, I wanted to say that I appreciate everyone that has been supporting the channel, shares our content, chimes in, leaves us comments. It's been a fun year. We really appreciate that feedback. And I just did that podcast the other day. How do you judge a man? And it's not necessarily hunting content, right? Maybe it's life content. And anytime that as a hunting channel, and that's really my focus, I deviate from that. I do sometimes worry because I want to say what I believe and the things that really matter to me. At the same time, I want to make sure I'm fulfilling my role as a hunting show and really not going too far off topic. But the feedback from that podcast was so positive that it just reinforces to me how important those messages are too. So as we sprinkle those things in here and there, I really appreciate the support on that, because I think hunting for me it's what I do. It's a part of my life, but it's not my whole life. And there's so much more I feel like that supports what we do as hunters and as people that are important subjects to cover. Mitch Nell left this comment. He said, "Brian, I love the podcast, and I have been listening nonstop, trying to absorb as much info as I can before next year when I try for deer and bear. This kind of podcast is one of the major reasons I'm subscribed to your channel. I love your outlook on life, and I can tell you truly use some critical thinking and develop your own opinions. You don't let others just rule over and mold your thinking to their whims. Thanks for all the amazing content and valued info. Subscribed for life. Keep rocking, brother." I really appreciate that. I just wanted to say that. And hunting season's rolling up on us here real soon. So hope you're all stoked on that. I can't wait. A couple more weeks and seasons. I cannot wait for elk season. So we're going to drop some hunting podcasts here on elk over the next couple weeks, trying to get you guys some last minute content on elk hunting before you hit the woods, get you motivated, or give you some knowledge that might make the difference. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully you like it. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.